Good morning, students. We are beginning with Victorian age. So, in this semester, I will be dealing with Victorian poetry in particular. So, I thought I will give you an introduction to the age itself. So, in this class, I will be talking about the characteristics of the age. I think you might have got an introduction from, I think it will be Miss Geetu. So I will give you a quick view of the characteristics of this age and then we will move to Victorian poetry in particular. So you may know the characteristics. It is termed as the age of peace and prosperity. It is considered to be one of the greatest in British history, one of the greatest era in British history. It was a period of peace and prosperity, and there was no great war happening between 1815 and 1940. So there was this Crimean War and all those colonial conflicts happening during this period, but it is said that it was not great enough to disturb peace in England. Along with the grace of peace, England had the blessing of prosperity too. So you may know that the Industrial Revolution, which happened during this period, it reached unprecedented heights. And along with that, the maritime supremacy of England and the great expansion of the empire provided raw materials for her factories and markets for her manufactured goods. So, the remarkable material advancement was testified by the great exhibition which happened in 1851 and the Jubilee celebrations which happened in 1887. So, the Victorian age achieved an unprecedented degree of prosperity in all fields. So we can look into the details. We will look into the social life of Victorian age. The social life of the Victorian age was actually noted for its material progress and mitigation of all those social evils of the previous centuries, and the trade and industry flourished during this period, and the benefit of the trade and industry was shared by all sections of the society. Railways, steamship, telegraph, electricity made life more comfortable and modern. There was this all-round developments which actually ensured better living conditions, and owing to the progress of medical science there was a considerable fall in death rate too. So the government as well as private agencies tried to promote public health and sanitation. So there was this first Public Health Act was made in 1841, and also we can see that the working conditions in the factories also improved during this period, and the poor in the towns came to have better dwellings, better houses, and education also received the attention of the government. So, towards the end of the century, we see that the elementary education was made free and compulsory. It is also known as an era of cultural efflorescence. The peace and prosperity of the period facilitated advancement in literature and learning. The spread of education facilitated the intellectual growth of the people, and we see all those new scientific theories with Darwin's evolution theory, which actually revolutionized the thought process of the public. and the foundations of all old philosophies and theories began to shake. And as a result, there was this skepticism. Skepticism is actually doubt or in the minds of the public, and it can be seen. It is evident in the poems of Tennyson and Matthew Arnold. So there was this general prosperity, which actually led to complacency as well. So there is this penchant for status quo, like there is this term known as Victorian complacency. And the Victorian age was also an age of reforms. The endeavor of philosophical writers and social workers prepared ground for many reforms which happened in various fields. We have the Parliament Reform Act of 1832, 1867, and 1884, which extended the franchise to the majority of the adult males, and thus the cause of democracy was served to some extent. So we see some kind of, to a limit, we see a democratization happening. They get voting rights during this period. And there was this various factory acts which reduced hours of work and ensured better working conditions and imposed restrictions on the employment of women and children. So there was this growing humaneness, reflection of humaneness, and which was also responsible for the reform of the penal code and the removal of all those horrors of prison life. The general prosperity and the resultant satisfaction, as I said earlier, induced the Victorians to adopt an attitude of complacency. They thought, what is this Victorian complacency? It is that they thought that everything was quite satisfactory. They strove for the maintenance of the status quo. And this attitude was, of course, not helpful for the real progress and radical reforms. So that is what I think you have studied the work of Tennyson, Ulysses, in which they are the travelers who are complacent, who are lazy to explore, to strive and move forward. So they believed that it actually brought a hindrance to the uh, real progress and an hindrance to all those radical reforms. So this Victorian complacency is often criticized, and equally notorious is Victorian morality too. So we have these great writers like Carlyle and Arnold who satirized the stiff decorum of the Victorians. They also satirized all those snobbishness of the Victorians. So we can say that all these new scientific theories couldn't actually forego their traditional belief in spite of all those new tendencies and ideas. The age continued to be essentially religious. So we have this contradictions there, that that one part they had this strict adherence to religion, when the other part they had this theory of Darwin which actually shook the entire intellectual world. So on one part, there was this Bible reading and strict Sunday observances, and the other part, they had all those new scientific theories. So that is why this age is also known as the age of compromise. So they actually try to reconcile religious dogma with scientific truth. Church going, Bible reading, and strict Sunday observances were still the chief characteristics of the complacent Victorian society. That is why it is known as the age of compromise. In the political field, we can see that the Victorians effected a compromise between democracy and aristocracy. And there was this contradictions, as I said earlier. There was this conflict between religion and science. There was this conflict between exploitation and reforms. There was this conflict between repression and promiscuity. So we have this conflict, the constant conflict, and that is why Victorians are known, the Victorian age is known as an age of compromise. So there are all these various theories of science, especially Darwin's theory of evolution, which actually caused skepticism in the Victorians. But they tried to make a compromise between religion and science. And that is what Tennyson says. He says that there remains more faith in honest doubt, believe me, than in half the creeds. So in short, we can say that the Victorian age was one of peace, prosperity, and culture. Besides cultural advancement, there was this great scientific progress, imperial expansion, and commercial prosperity. That was why Tennyson, on the occasion of Golden Jubilee of the Queen's reign, sang about the 50 years of ever broadening commerce, 50 years of ever brightening science, 50 years of ever widening empire. So now we will look into the religion of the religion in Victorian era. So it can be said that a study of the Victorian age will be incomplete if the religious aspect is left out. So religion, as I said earlier, religion played an important role in Victorian life. The Victorians in general were ardently religious. In this respect, the 19th century, especially the Victorian era, differed from the 18th century, which was a period of religious inertia. The Victorian age was marked by religious earnestness and moral discipline, and these qualities colored the life of all eminent Victorians, including poets and politicians, that we can see when we study Victorian poetry. Even the court of the Queen was a model of disciplined life. The reign of Victoria witnessed remarkable material progress, but it also witnessed great religious activities and reforms. So it was also an age. We can say that it was a censorious age, and the radical press attacked the Anglican clergy for their many failings. And under the inspiration of all the reforming spirit of this age, government did many things to improve the image of the church. There was this Marriage Act of 1836, which removed the condition that marriage can be legalized only by Anglican clergymen. And another step was taken to help the dissenters and Catholics. It was the Act of 1871, which actually abolished religious tests for admission and appointment in universities. So this is Victorian era in general. We dealt with the characteristics of this age. Why is it termed as the age of peace, prosperity, and we saw the cultural efflorescence during this period. So now we'll move to the next part, Victorian poetry. And as I said earlier, I have been constantly repeating this, that literature is always a mirror of the society. And what happens in the society will definitely gets reflected in the literature too. So what we saw, the age of peace, it is termed as the age of peace, prosperity, the age of compromise, age of complacency. So all these attitudes were visible in the literature of this period. So right now I am stopping my lecture on the characteristics of Victorian age. In the next class we will start talking about Victorian poetry. Okay then, thank you.